Welcome, everybody. My name is Anthony Kazazis, and I am the director of the NYC Network Group, as well as the NYC Real Estate Expo. And the NYC Network Group, along with Roos Advisors, Lorendi Roos, is bringing you a 12-week series webinar called Book Yourself Solid. Last week, we had Matthew Kimberly, who is the head of the book, Book Yourself Solid. And he went over he actually covered the red velvet rope system. This week, we have two great guests. We have Lou Diamond from Loud Thrive and Larry Haber from Leasing Reality. And they're here to discuss the 80/20% rule. That's giving 80% and that's selling 20%. And that's exactly what I don't do. So I'm very excited to listen to these two and discuss how they do it. This is, of course, the keep in touch strategy. So today's guest, we're going to start off with reading his bio, Larry Haber from Leasing Reality. Larry is the managing partner of the commercial real estate department of the bi-coastal law firm Abrams, Garfinkel, Margolis, Berkson, LLP, and a reformed yet long recovered real estate developer. Larry Haber is the founder and CEO of Leasing Reality, an online training and negotiating platform that allows its users to choose how, when, and in what educational format they prefer to acquire and or enhance their commercial leasing knowledge, so as to help them master their leasing domain. Larry is also known to some as the leasing guru, takes the great pride in providing his clients with the power to make knowledgeable decisions concerning their business and individual needs. Combining decades of commercial real estate ownership with a professional background in law, accounting, commercial brokerage, property management, construction planning, development, and leasing, reconstructing, Larry and his team could be the difference in helping clients navigate their challenges of all business face. Lou Diamond, Thrive Loud. Lou Diamond is a dynamic speaker and a master connector who will energize and motivate your organization to explode your sales, retain your clients, and build a thriving culture. For over 25 years, he has been a top sales performer, keynote speaker, and performance mentor. Lou is a growth consultant, best-selling author, podcast and TV host, and CEO of Thrive, helping businesses, top performers, and brands thrive through the power of connecting. He has consulted, mentors, and presented to hundreds of companies the world over. Lou inspires audiences to feel that they can conquer the world and make tons of great new connections doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you my host, Lorendi Roos from Roos Advisors, who will start off the questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anthony and Larry and Lou. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our guests who decided to take some time out of your morning to spend with us. And we believe it will be time well spent. And we want to have a good time. We want to have, I like doing things that are fun and sociable. So that's what we're going to try to do. Of course, we put questions, comments, send love through the chat feature, and we'll be monitoring that and paying attention to it so that we can keep you engaged. So this morning, we're going to be talking about our keep in touch strategy. And we're going to talk about how we do that in an organic, natural relationship building way. And then also how we might be able to utilize some tools to make that easier for us, or at least to help us keep track of where we're at. So going back to what we learned last week from Matthew in the introduction to the Book Yourself Solid series, remember that this is a relationship building system. This is not a get as many leads as you can, cram them into a funnel and push them out the other side as fast as possible. This is a sustainable system that feels really good and natural and comes from a very authentic way of being. And we know that when we have that at our fingertips and that's our way of being, we'll stay committed to it, we'll do more of it, and as a result, our businesses will grow. So Matthew talked about that relationships don't create businesses, but they certainly support, nurture, and sustain them. So everything that we can do to nurture deep relationships with the people that we are meant to serve and the people that are meant to walk with us, then the more sustainable our businesses will be. So this is about the collect and connect. So I heard one time someone saying, well, this just seems like you're about collecting people. And, you know, that doesn't seem like it's a very a natural thing to do. But the truth of the matter is we're people, we're all people, and we all thrive on relationships and connection. So when I studied with Tony Robbins, one of the things that he and his partner, Chloe Madonis, were constantly trying to remind us of were our 6 basic human needs. And right in the middle of those 6 basic human needs is love and connection. And love and connection is the gateway to growth and contribution. Love and connection is the gateway to higher creativity and higher connection and higher ways of being and from a higher consciousness state. So to the extent that we can meet as many people as possible, and then both of us put one another through our red velvet rope system, and then we connect and stay connected, then over time, we will find those people that we're meant to stand in service of. In addition, from a networking perspective and a tribe building perspective, we really only need to have deep connections with somewhere between 20 to 50 people or in order to have a really sustainable, thriving business. So we don't stop at 20 to 50 because if anything that the recent events have taught us is that things are always changing. So we're constantly putting ourselves out there. We're constantly sending out information into the world where people can get to know us a little better. And then over time, people might come and go through that kind of elite 20 to 50 connection circle. But over time, you're continuing to keep it alive and thriving and filled with people that inspire you and energize you and vice versa. On a final note of that is often we do a pretty good job of networking if any of us are social creatures at all, or we have bills to pay, families to feed, trips to take, houses to furnish. We do a pretty good job of networking. Where we can often fall down though is that next part of after you collect to connect. What we're going to talk about today is an authentic, natural way to connect. I kind of equate this to dating. So imagine that you're putting yourself, you know, out online, or, you know, back when I was dating, it was a few years ago, we didn't have the social media help. So we just had to kind of find ourselves in communities where we might be discovered. Imagine you meet someone for the first time and you immediately go into sales mode, or you immediately go into next level exclusivity mode. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel good. Probably going to turn that person off. And yet for those of us who sales are integral to our business, very often we unintentionally put out those same kind of vibes. And what we want to do is just slow it down a little bit and become really comfortable with who we are, the gifts that we offer, confident in what we are, and then we can over time slowly share content 80% of the time where we're not asking for anything in return. We're not asking for that second and third and fourth date. We're just being very natural, and we're just giving of ourselves in a way so our potential clients can get to know us. So in that way, it can feel very comfortable to us. It'll feel comfortable to the people that we're in communication with. And through that process, our red velvet rope will kind of get a little tighter. And what we'll find out is through this process, 3, 4, 5 conversations in, we might decide, or 3, 4, 5 emails in of someone receiving information from us, that at this time, let's say I'm in communication with Larry Haber, and over 4, 5, 6 emails or phone conversations, we discover that Larry is not in the real estate industry, as like we like to call it, ready, willing, or able to purchase my services. No one takes it personally. It's not a big deal. It's just that Larry's not ready, willing, and able, and I'm not. So at that point, he's not a ready and willing, able buyer. But it also might be that he is a ready, willing, and able buyer, but I'm not the right person to offer my services or to meet the needs that he has. So another thing that we'll talk about a little bit later in the series is how, if Larry discovers that he's ready, willing, and able to buy, but I'm not the right provider for him, how do I, from a very authentic and service-based place, help get Larry get his needs met, which also supports and sustains my business for the long term. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And again, we're always going back to relationship and authenticity. And I always say, boldly go where no one can go as you. So we have to know who we are. We have to know what we stand for, like Matthew talked about. And then whatever role we're filling in our current cycle in our life will just be a natural outward expression of whoever I am. So, Anthony, and I've introduced the topic, so we're now going to spend some time with our guests and ask them some questions about how do they do this in their own business and in their own lives. So Anthony, I'm going to turn the time over to you to start working with our guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorendi. That was very nice. Both of you guys, Larry and Lou, how do you guys keep in touch with your prospects? I mean, what do you guys use? What type of methods do you use? Frequencies, messages? I mean, how are you guys doing it and succeeding and winning?
Lou, you want to go first?
Sure. I'd like to do. First of all, thanks for having me here. I want to start out just by saying why I was put on this planet, and that'll help understanding how I actually connect with people. See, I was put on this planet to work with the most amazing businesses, leaders, and brands, and help them thrive through the power of connecting. So connecting is part of who I do, and I'm sorry to correct you, Lorendi, but we are not here today to network. We don't go to networking events to network. We already have enough people in our networks. We're here to actually connect work, right? We're trying to make strong connections with the people in our network. So an important thing that you have to think about, what I do each and every day, and we could talk about the how I do it, is I have a big belief that every single outreach you make will eventually lead to starting a conversation. And that conversation will lead to understanding somebody's problem, which you can then solve by proposing a solution for how you can do business with them. So the goal is to reach out as much as you can, as frequently as you can, to your connect work and try to establish that. And there's lots of ways to do it, but that's my mindset in going into it, Anthony, is that I'm thinking each day I have to be making a conscious effort to make as many outreaches as I can, and I track them. So we'll start off with that. That's how I do it, and I'll let Larry give his little opening here. We'll get into it, I'm sure.
That's interesting, because we come about it similar, but very different ways. I am a very big believer, and I use a lot of rock and roll, hip hop, pop culture, historical analogies as learning mnemonics, as trying to basically use, for example, Max from the show New Amsterdam, who's a doctor. His mantra is, how can I help? Okay, and you need to do it, in my world, from both the heart and the mind, as far as being connect work, as you say it. We are a very big believer in knowledge, educational marketing, and we do it virtually every day. I spent Leasing Reality, I was working on for about 30 something years. I just didn't know I was, the first 26 or 27 years of doing so. And as a consequence, I was able to create a very large amount of content, and we put it out there every day. And listen, when we're using social media to get our message out, I think the big obvious is that we're all trying to promote ourselves in some way, shape, or form. But, I try to do it in a way that we are a giver, not a taker. We are giving knowledge and we're giving it in a multitude of ways so that, people want to, for no better way of stating it, they want to party with us personally and professionally. We try to do it with a smile. We do it where, like, for example, one of the things we're all trying to do here is we're trying to add value. And I have many theories of life and business, and one of them that relates to value is the Albert Einstein, Snoop Dogg, Drake, bring your A game theory. And when sometimes when I speak, people look at me, I'm just this bald, I may be the biggest child on this conversation, but I'm 61 years old now. And they're like, where are these things coming from? It's just the way I always spoke growing up. And it's really, so that one, as Albert Einstein said, the 21st century version of what he said is try not to be a man or woman of success, rather be a man or woman of value. And Snoop Dogg, big Albert Einstein fan, he took it a step further and says, doesn't matter if you're flipping hamburgers at McDonald's, be the best hamburger flipper there is in the world. No matter what you do, master your craft. And it goes on from there. I'm going to spare you my rapping with Drake.
Thank God.
You don't
Thank
follow
goodness.
that. But boy, the videos are there, okay? So it's really that it's educational marketing. Like there's something called ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis. Do a trick, get a reward. I'm a very big believer in a phrase that I coined that basically probably 5 people know about, and those really is my family members. And that's reverse ABA, and that's give the reward. And then hopefully someday the trick will happen. The trick will be someone connecting you with someone else, someone giving you business or whatever. And it's, I just look at it that it's all about doing the right thing. We're all sitting here in so many ways. Everyone's a little shy about putting themselves out there. But, using yet another analogy, a Bruce Springsteen song, we're all dancing in the dark a little bit, okay? And it's just like, there's no right, there's no wrong, but it's, you just can't come off as the initial thing. It's sell, sell, sell. If I'm guilty of anything, I don't know if I'm 80-20, okay? I'm definitely giving. I'm from the school. Hey, you want to get, you got to give. I may be 90-10, okay? And maybe that's, but you have to ask at some point, but it's getting it out there and coming at it in a myriad of ways. So for the moment, I'll be quiet on that point.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. And I'll always throw in a little how I do it as well. I'm probably very similar to Larry, very old-fashioned. I believe in the Christian motto, giver's gain. I always want everybody to feel like a winner. I want everybody to feel special. So, when you're always giving, like Larry says, it's an easy sell. It's such an easy sell. When you give them that special deal, when you give them that little extra, especially when I run the expo and I get an exhibitor and they want more tickets when the cost is $100, I'll give it to them as long as they're happy, because the most important thing is getting that exhibitor back to the trade show next year. So if they want 20 tickets, if they want 30, 40, 50, you got it, no problem. Because I want you guys just to get 1 or 2 deals out of that. If you get 1 or 2 deals out of those 50 tickets, you're going to come back. It was worth it for you, especially today. But I love Lou's new way of connecting as well. So it's always good to pick up some new ideas. But yeah, when you give a lot, it's an easy sell. And I'm going to throw it right back to Lorendi.
Thank you. So if you, do you keep statistics, Lou and Larry, around any of this, or do you just kind of organically let it happen? And just I know you both said that you reach out every day. So do you keep statistics on how this works for you? I'll start with Lou this time.
Yeah. So I used to believe that that my ability to connect with people, which this is what this is about, because I don't care about making the sale. I care about making the connection, because the stronger the connection is, the more sales you're going to make down the road. And the sales is secondary. To Larry's point, it's about helping people.
Right.
And the more people you help, the more you will connect. But I also recognize that it is important to measure this. Mm-hmm. And I used to say, well, I've got this natural flair and I know that I can have that strong relationship and the relationship values. But here's the thing. Each of you recognizes that we're not just trying to make a sale for tomorrow or the next day. We're trying to make business grow every single day. And that means that we are always pushing the business development pipeline forward. So how do we know if we do it or not? And this was, Lorendi, this was the thing that I recognized. What was the important thing to capture? What was the thing that mattered most to me? Because I couldn't go through all the details of every conversation I have with Anthony, Larry, Julie, Lorendi. It doesn't make a difference. What actually makes a difference is that I'm reaching out. And I will actually do it by two ways. One is at the end of every day, I literally write down 4 numbers, hopefully. And I actually have a tracker that does this every day because for a long time I didn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing this, I all of a sudden saw unbelievable growth. I tracked how many people I reached out to in a day, outreaches. I tracked the number of conversations. I tracked the number of proposals that I needed to send out or that were initiated from those conversations. And the most important number, which we all love to love, like I captured the wins.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing is that before I just kind of said, if I don't put myself accountable, and this is what it is, it's you have to make yourself accountable concretely because yes, you can be the greatest relationship person, but you're going to have ups and downs. But what you don't realize is that the conversation that I'm having today with someone is going to generate business 2 years from now, believe it or not, because I had the conversation then. So it doesn't matter what you talked about or what other metric, but those 4, if you measure them every single day, because it's a formula, the number of outreaches then bleeds to conversations, which bleeds to a certain business. You can actually figure it out. 100 conversations will probably lead you to 5 new pieces of business. So that means you always have to track it. So I do capture it and track it. Those are the only numbers I write down and track every day.
Thank you. And how about you, Larry? Do you track your statistics?
I'm a little bit more informal. I happen to have, with Lease and Reality, because we have a few businesses, and Lease and Reality, as funny as this may sound, I'm the eye candy and talent, but one of my partners who I've known for about 26 years, who's one of my 4 sons, is the brains of it. And he keeps track of it, Ryan.
That means you married well, Larry, is what that
Yes,
means.
exactly. Okay. Yeah, I'm an overachiever. I'm very big.
Absolutely.
Okay. Some people will say I have a good personality when they see how wonderful my wife is. But anyway, so we do look at, the SEO and what comes in, but it's not a matter of how many likes you have. It's really about how many people that, we can engage, and we keep track of that because, piggybacking off of something you said, Lou, listen, life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. If I do a public and speaking engagement at the Real Estate Board of New York, my wife will ask me, how was the day? And I'll say, listen, a lot of people are engaged, not too many people passed out, for the most part, they were paying attention. And she goes, you think you'll get business out of it? But I go, yeah, we'll make somewhere between, for that 4 or 5 hours I spoke, between 10 and a few $100,000 on it. Might not come in for 5 years, but it will come in. Okay, because you sit there and you gave and you help people out, you answered their questions. And the same thing happens with what we do online. Listen, within LinkedIn happens to be the biggest commercial real estate networking group in the world. It's unbelievable. When we put out our posts, on LinkedIn with some level of content, and sometimes it's written, sometimes it's the videos that we have, because we have hundreds of those. We then not only send it to whatever we have in our connections, 4, 5, 6,000. I don't really know the number, candidly, but then there's the follow list. We then push it to, we have 57 groups, I think, that we're in that are somehow real estate, food and beverage, retail, office centric and professional centric. And some of those groups have, 250 members. Some of them have 150, 200,000 members. And what I'm getting is, okay, people who have liked it from this group or that group. And then, the way I'm tracking it is that, because I know it's going off a little bit, but there's the concept of flywheels. You have different businesses that bring in business and they work off of one another. When I do the podcasts, are able to theoretically show my personality and I'm given knowledge, but then it brings eyeballs to Lease and Reality. Lease and Reality, then we hopefully can sell some subscriptions, and then Lease and Reality and the podcast bring business to the law firm, which is really how I make money. Okay. It's like when I say tongue in cheek, but when I want to be boring and pay the bills, that's where the business, comes in. So it gets tracked in various ways. When I'm getting calls from someone that saw me at an event 2 or 3 years ago or something I posted, it's a great way of tracking, so it's a little bit different.
I just want to add to Larry's point here, and this is important. A lot of you have more than one business and do lots of different things. And that was the challenge that I had when it came to tracking. Oh, was this for my consulting services or my speaking services? And then I realized it didn't matter. All that mattered was that there was an outreach. All that mattered was there was a conversation. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more since we're both podcast hosts. The podcast show has become the greatest networking tool, if you would, I've ever created for my business and for myself. Because you're really having a real in-depth conversation and everybody else gets to hear that conversation too.
Thank you, Lou.
Guys, this is, since this is one of the questions, we're on tracking right now. And of course we have 2 clients, 2 attendees that are asking about a low-cost CRM tracking report. Can you guys recommend the ones that you use?
No.
We ended up creating one with my law firm, and we don't use it that much, but it's meaning me personally, but it's an excellent tool. But that was not quote unquote low cost. I definitively get emails every day, and there's a lot of good ones out there. It depends what is your business, but they are essential. I fortunately have an unbelievable team who is part of the tracking system, and we have spreadsheets which are, yes, antiquated, but live and breathe, that we all can share, so they're perpetually updated. But Lou, I'm gonna punt this question to you.
So, and I'll make this clear that I use something that's very specific for me, and I recommend many different CRMs for different types of organizations because I work with sales teams to figure it out. So let's use me and this whole tracking of outreaches and contacts. I use something called Cloze, C-L-O-Z-E. The reason I use it is because I don't have to do anything. And I mean that in that I don't have another thing to manage. It literally sucks in my behavior on the phone, on a Zoom call, on LinkedIn, on any social media, on my email, on a chat. It pulls all the sources of information based on who I connect with. And if I look up a person, like the connection that I have, let's just say with Anthony, it not only will log every email, text, call, everything we've ever done, even this Zoom thing we're doing right now because he invited me to it. It has a source of where I know I could see it, and I can value my relationship with him. I could give him, like, is he a prospect, a partner, a client? So for someone that is dealing with many different businesses, and this is a true customer relationship manager, Cloze is truly that. Someone here commented in about HubSpot, which is free. By the way, Cloze is very inexpensive. I think, I want to say I'm paying like less than $130 all year round for it. And it's on my phone, it's on the app, it's on the cloud, it's wonderful. It's also unintrusive, that's why I like it. But for some of my clients, yes, HubSpot is great for larger organizations. You have to figure out what makes the most sense for your team. To give you an idea, to Larry's customized thing, I have a low-cost customized tracker that I use, which is basically I took Google Sheets and put it on steroids, if you would. And that's how I track all of the different activities I do each week, each day, each month, et cetera, because that was the only thing that worked for me. But Cloze is the one I use individually. Their HubSpot is phenomenal if you have a really good sales team and a mobile sales team, which is very good for real estate. It's also very, and there's different pay models. Someone said it was free. You can get it free, but there's other versions you want. That's my high level piece. Anyone wants to talk to me more about it, we can drill down a little more.
Thank you. I want to circle back for a moment. You talked about tracking and how, for you, Lou, and also for you, Larry, what you're tracking is the number of outreach that leads you to conversations or connections. And I love your terminology, Lou, about connect work. I might borrow that from you.
It's going to cost you slightly, but that's okay. Yeah,
I'll give you credit. One of the things, so we run, in addition to our consulting firm, we also have a recruiting agency. And in that department, I track the metrics really, really tightly every day. One of the reasons being is that when you're outreach, it's easy to get fatigued. And one of the things that tracking those metrics helped us do that both Lou and Larry spoke to is to figure out, am I still connected to connecting?
Yeah.
If I'm not making those outreach calls, there's a reason. And we talk about, Larry talked about ABA. What is coming up for me that is causing me to not do the behavior that I know I need to do? And 9.5 times out of 10, it's because something has gone on with one of our recruiters. Something's coming up for them, a lack of confidence, or something's going on in the background, in the subconscious, that's causing them to not outreach. So if we're not tracking these numbers, they could sell by for a week and us not pick up on that very fact, right? Something shifted, so they're not doing the outreach because something else is going on. So numbers are important to help us know. We don't track numbers to big brother it. We track numbers to help support one another, if that makes sense, Lou.
Totally. Yeah. No, I agree with it. And remember what we're trying to do here. I do this whole speech about, we are unfortunately subject to our devices. And I'm using the word vices in that, and that these lovely things, our email, our text, there's a lot of things that were meant to actually make us connect better. But unfortunately, because they're the easiest or the fastest thing to do, they're not actually doing their job. I used to always use the expression, it seems we have all these great gifts from the technology gods and we lost the instruction manuals on how to use them. Mm-hmm. Make it clear, to Lorendi's point, our job is to connect with someone and have that conversation. I do not consider a long text chat with someone that I'm trying to connect with as establishing a connection. Email is meant to be a bridge to have an in-person meeting, a connection, a Zoom call, etc. Not to be an entire chain of, oh my God, I have no idea what I have. You're supposed to use these tools to actually get yourself to get to the person faster. And that's the thing that people forget. So I've heard this from sales teams members when they said this. I'm like, well, explain to me how the relationship is going with said client XYZ. And the person will be like, oh, well, we've been talking back and forth and we've been communicating about all these different things numerous times a day. I go, oh, when was the last time you actually spoke to this person? And there's a long pause. Actually, no, we've just been chatting or using email or doing anything else. And I'm like, let's make it clear. The longer that you're not doing this and they're seeing or hearing you, the further you're getting away from connecting and helping them.
Yeah, if you have the ability to string syllables together, which is an amazing talent, and part of what you bring to the table is charm, warmth, knowledge, a smile, whatever it may be, you have to take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. Because listen, whether I've interviewed hundreds of college students over the last 2 years for the startup, and we've hired about 45 interns over the last 2 summers, not this one. And the short is, the ones who didn't matter, listen, there were ones who went to a state university that were able to run circles around one who went to an Ivy because of the ability to speak. And you just can't, use all of our devices and use it as a vice. Part of, it's not a pet peeve, but too many people are what I call fubbers. Okay, playing off of the word snub. They're so attracted to that phone, so tied into it that, if Lou and I are out to lunch together and Lou gets a text, if Lou picks up that phone, it's like, unless he said before, I have one important thing I have to check on beforehand. It's like, dude, be in the present, but you need to reach out and touch. I mean, you need to speak to people. It's old school.
Yeah.
And you have to find that perfect combination of social media and the new school and old school.
And I'll say this to both of you and we'll let it lead to the next thing. This is asking for permission, which is basically what all of us are doing. It's nice to have a little bit of manners in the way we communicate. Like, let's just say I'm having that lunch with Larry and the phone rings and I know it's important, I have to get this. It's really important to say, are you okay if I take this for 2 minutes? As opposed to literally just picking it up and then texting or responding to the person without saying anything. Right. Because what we don't realize is that the way that we behave, to the point of Larry wanting to be the rock star and the cool guy you want to deal with, that's who we want to connect with. That's where the connection is made. It's that understanding the personality and who you're dealing with, not the role, the job, the responsibility, the company they work for. It's who that individual is. You got to show that and bring it forward.
Yeah, and one of the things on just putting out content and then speaking to people is, we are who we are. We're all Popeye in some way. His line was, "I am what I am." Okay, you can't be everyone's flavor of the month. That's why Baskin Robbins used to have 31 flavors they used to promote. But the bottom line is, you hope more people like you than don't. But you really just need to find a way, and I call it fly your freak flag. Okay, what is going to engage people? And don't be shy. There's an audience out there for you. Okay, and it's that fine line of, if there's a default between the 80 and 20, definitively always default to the 80, meaning, give, knowledge. Okay, and the sell, I think it will come. Years ago, someone said to me, he called me a curse because I was shying away from doing business because of some charitable initiative I was involved with. And he said, people like to hang out and do business with people who they like, who they respect, who they feel are sincere, etc. And my reply was, I pondered for a moment and I said, you mean I'm depriving the world of the party that is me? And he goes, exactly. And as a consequence, it helped me on social media. This was around 2008. It was when I started doing videos, when people weren't, let's say, people were asking me when I started doing the videos, am I committing career suicide, advertising the 70s were good to me, and or smoking crack? Literally, that's how, people say, it's so out of the box. I didn't even know there was a box then. So but it's like I was myself, and I said more people will like me than I don't. But reaching out and connecting, okay, knowing when to reach out is very important. You have to get the signals, and you only get that signal sometimes by way of speaking to someone. Mm-hmm. You can't ask until I'm not a fan of when someone asks me online, can I have your business?
Mm.
Yeah. I was just going to bring one thing together. Both Larry and I host podcast shows, and we ask a lot of questions. And Anthony and Lorendi are asking us the questions. The best interviews I've ever done is when me as the host and Larry as the host shut up and we listen. And what you're seeing right now, what Anthony and Lorendi are doing for everybody in this thing, this is how you should be when you're trying to connect with somebody. This is embracing the power of empathy. That's stepping in the shoes of somebody else and seeing what they're about. And obviously we're the subject here today, so it's rather ironic, but they're being emblematic and representative of what you should be doing when you're trying to connect with someone. Listen and let them go and let them fly. And now I'll let them.
You mean the lost art, Lou?
The lost art of the conversation, but more importantly,
the lost art is listening. Because listen, to a certain extent, we all like to talk about ourselves a little bit, but you learn by listening. You learn who the person on the other side of the table is, what gets them hot, what gets them not, and how you could help them. What you bring to the table can be of service to them. And if you don't listen, it just doesn't work.
Now we'll let you guys speak.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying that.
Listen, guys, the next year it's great information, guys. We love it. Marketing, marketing is everything. Larry, Leasing Reality, is it just you and your son that runs that business?
No, I have. Well, listen, last summer we had 20-something interns working for us, so that certainly helped.
Okay.
And we did podcasts with most of them. I also remember something. I'm fortunate that I have, 3 or 4 amazing rock star attorneys who have worked for me for years, and they're partners in the business as well. Okay. So, they're vested. So, and it's just a matter of, you can't do it yourself. Listen, I'm a worker bee as it relates to what I have to do on the legal side. And, listen, and in these days with what's going on with real estate and leasing, my role has turned into that of being, saying it tongue in cheek, but I'm 85% psychiatrist, 10% business person, and 5% just a mere slug attorney. Okay. So we're sitting here, you can't do it all by yourself. You have to have a lot of people help you out. And we're sitting here, listen, we're doing all these initiatives because, we have a certificate program, but we want to do online distance education, and they're helping me out on that. So it's, listen, the bottom line is you need to delegate. You need to have people you trust. And it's not always easy making the right hire, but, the people who work with me, I've been very lucky and very fortunate because, one of my theories that I have is the ho, 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 Dr. Evil and Jerry Maguire, you complete me theory. And it's all about, you know what? We don't know everything. If you are a real estate broker, for example, if you don't have on speed dial a number of attorneys, contractors, and architects who will readily take your phone call and give you advice for free or pretty close to free, then you're missing something, because you can't possibly know it all. They fill in the holes in your knowledge. And remember, Santa Claus, would be half the person he was without Mrs. Claus and the elves. Dr. Evil didn't find true happiness until he found Mini-Me. And, Jerry Maguire, if you remember that famous line at the end where he goes to Dorothy Boyd, Renee Zellweger, and professes his love to her. And, basically, he said, "You complete me." And what did she say? What do you want every potential client to say to you? "You had me at hello." So
very good, Larry. Very good. I guess, Lou, are you a one-man operation, Lou?
Well, no. So I'm the face of what the organization is. Like the three areas that I focus on, obviously, are, from speaking, consulting, and there's the podcast, which has become actually a business line in itself. But the overall message is really helping sales, marketing, and leaders better connect. And that's where I'm brought in. Most of the time it's with the sales organizations, because we're getting them to better connect. And a lot of the stuff we've been doing now at Thrive is Thrive virtually, which is exactly what we're doing here. We're trying to make this environment, because this is how we're going to be doing business for a long time, whether you want to or not. And it's also important, but all the marketing pieces around us, whether it's the podcast, whether it's this shameless plug for Master the Art of Connecting, or whatever it might be, we are always making sure we're on brand with the message that Larry started our whole conversation off with. How can we help make our targets and clients better, make their worlds bigger, make them connect more? What do they need? So it's a very tactical thing that we do in the way that we message everything. Even the language we use is always focused on not touting ourselves. And I'll say this to our listeners here: when you want to share your capabilities or your company's presentations, I call it the slide of death, or the logo slide of death. The one that says, here's every company that I've ever worked for and who I've done business for. Do you know what that really says? It actually says, here is everybody that isn't you. The only logo that ever matters when you're in a meeting or a sales thing is the person you're trying to connect with. You don't matter. Nothing else matters. Your entire focus should be on that person. That's the way we message, and that's the way we try to connect and help people do the same.
Bravo.
I guess the question that I'm going to ask here is that a lot of us are trying to reinvent the wheel. A lot of us are trying to do their own job, their side job. Okay. Can you give, and try to make it quick, guys, on this one, what's the advice? And I think I got Lou's answer already. When is a good time to market? If you got a little bit of business and you don't want to be opt out, you don't want to blast and harass people, when do you guys, I know that like Larry has these CE classes and he's putting out the message whenever that CE comes out. Is there a time to really just do it? Like we have an expo course and we put out all these webinar blastings and stuff, but is there a better time? Like Lou, you mentioned Sunday. Is there a great time to be consistent and do it every Sunday and every Tuesday? I think you mentioned Sunday and Tuesday. Guys, I just want to know, when do you put out the message to your clients and what's the best results?
Yeah, so I'll expand upon that. And there's different types of messaging and different types of things. If you have an email communication, actually, importantly, what you said, Anthony, is consistency is the most important thing. If you know that your message is consistently coming out, if it's a company newsletter, if it's a podcast, if there's the consistency is actually ways that you can see what works. And you might have to adjust to find the right consistency. However, as it relates to email specifically, because it is still the number one form of communication to try to connect with someone, although that's slowly changing. That's for another podcast. When it comes to emailing, the greatest likelihood of opening up, of getting an email and having somebody read it and respond to it, actually is Tuesday morning between 10 and 11. And I'm not kidding you. This has actually been studied. It's Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday on emails. For social media posts, Anthony, it's actually a little different. social media communication, specifically stuff with images, like the image you sent of Larry and I around this, images tend to be very popular on Thursday, Sunday, and Tuesday evening. This has been studied by Facebook and Instagram and trying to understand where the posts are. By the way, here's, if you notice, I've left something off in all those things. Never send anything external on a Friday. I'm letting you know that the odds of it not only being, it's Friday morning is one thing, you know, you understand your time zones, but if you send anything to anyone about something, it's going to get lost. It'll get wrapped over the weekend with all of these other junk mails that'll come. By the time Monday morning's emails come, you're never connecting with this person. Let it be known your communication week ends Thursday afternoon. Learn this from all your communications. I got more details about it, but that's my high level piece for you to what works best, when to send and when to have people respond to it.
I'm going to partially answer the question by answering a question of David, who asked, how do you basically connect with someone when you don't know them from a hole in the wall? And, you know, with social media, listen, content, yes, there's some of the Redstone said content is king, but the bottom line is it is as important, and some people will say more, to comment, to create a connection, okay? Putting that's creating content, just not just saying good job, you know, yay, and doing a smiley face, okay, but saying something productive to the person who put out the content, the person who you don't know from a hole in the wall, David, okay, is a great way of connecting, because you're sitting there and you're not only engaging that person, you're not only giving them a virtual hug, so to speak, but then it gives you a little chance to create content and, you know, and maybe add some value at the same time. As far as the time as to when we do it, we've experimented over the years. I used to like doing it at 5:36 in the morning or 6:30 because, hey, wake up with Larry. And that doesn't always work, okay? I agree, you know, overall, for the most part, with Lou about the Friday thing. Although, to me, it sounds counterintuitive. Sending something out late morning, okay, those have helped with us, you know.
Yeah, it also has to do with something else. And this is the thing that everyone needs to know. And this will help if there's one takeaway from your communication you send out and trying to connect. No one reads anymore. We scan. So anything you send, it's like our eyes are looking at that Instagram picture or that Facebook post you just put up. You're taking pictures with your eyes. So that means that if you send an email and you have to scroll it, or it doesn't have clear breaks, or it's no more than literally the width of my hand here, like 5 sentences or 3 paragraphs, and you don't have to go up or down on any screen. If you abide by that rule, you actually have a greater chance of them looking at it. If you have to read something, forget it, because more people have more emails and they have other stuff to get to, and the first thing they're gonna say is, I don't have time for this. Yeah. All you wanna do is establish that connection to drive them to the phone, drive them to meet in person as quickly as you can. So keep that in mind in all your communications. Be brief, be bright, be gone.
I have a question.
Just one thing, just piggybacking off that, like we're doing our CE on Thursday, and it's about lease restructuring. And who am I targeting? You know, primarily it's real estate professionals. Right. Primarily it's going to be real estate brokers. In the subject, it says free CE lease restructuring. It's like those are magical words right now, you know, in the real estate realm. If you are a commercial leasing broker, okay, or a commercial leasing attorney, it's like boom, okay, I'll bite. Hopefully, I got their attention. If nothing else, they remember Larry Haber, CE educator, etc. Okay, and
I just want to make it clear, anything I get from Larry Haber, I'm opening, I'm reading, I'm like I'm printing it out. I'm actually thinking, see this space on my wall? I'm going to print it out and put it on a frame right here.
Yeah, you want to see what is he babbling about today?
What could possibly be worth him?
Exactly. Who's he quoting today? You know,
exactly.
But that's part of the shtick. But you know, you sit there and I created the audience that way. You know, with flying my freak flag, as I said before, and creating something that, remember, you want to be having fun when you're doing this. Hopefully when you're doing social media, it's not a job. It's part of your job, but you want to make it that it's fun, okay?
And don't do it if you don't know how to do it. Hire somebody that is. That's part of the team things. There's certain things I know, there's certain things you don't. If you're thinking about trying to get into it, get someone who's a pro at it, just like you would do, the same way you'd want service on yourself that way.
Oh yeah, I truly feel that one of my greatest talents is knowing that I lack a number of them.
Without a doubt. Did you hear the beep that said, we got to rush this thing along because we have to leave time for Q&A, Larry? Don't you see what they're looking at? They're trying to get to that point.
No, it's all good. I do want, this question will be part of another episode because we could talk about it for a whole episode, but just if you can somewhat briefly, and I'm curious for both Lou and Larry. We talk about team building, right? And so one of the things that this series also talks about is that at some point, and you've already talked about it, together we're better, and doing it alone is no way to go. I always say that if you want to feel really connected, don't pick projects that you can do by yourself. If you want to feel really connected to a bigger part of you and your consciousness and why you're on the planet, like you talked about, Lou, is pick projects where you need help. So as you're growing your organizations, and Larry, you're a great connector, Lou, you're a great connector. At what point do you stop connecting and you let your rank and file connect?
Immediately. This is as simply put as this, is that your relationship as an organization internally doesn't work with just one person having it. Think of the world you're in as like an orb in a bubble, and one connection is like an overlapping orb into that. Well, if you looked from the moon and you looked down at your company and you saw all these orbs together, it actually would look like one really cohesive, powerful world. That's your world all connected. Mm-hmm. There, people who feel that they need to, put limits or try to create tiers or those relationships, make it clear. If you have a solid connection with someone there, you're going to define that communication, because guess what? You might not be the best person in your organization to be connecting with that person. It might be somebody on your team. And for anyone to think otherwise would devalue exactly what you would want someone to say, hey, we want them as a client. What is that going to mean? Well, I got to show my whole organization. So immediately, Lorendi.
Thank you. Larry?
I believe in sharing and delegating, and at the end of the day, I'm better because of who works for me. Okay, and I want people to know about them. Listen, initially people want, they want to speak to me, and you try and steer them away, and there's that is just not me, but it's a matter of something. As long as I give them comfort that no, I am always here for you. Hey, listen, everyone has my cell number. Too many professionals don't give out cell numbers. It's like magical. All of a sudden, hey, a lot of people have to now. Okay, because of what we're living through the last 5 months or so. But it's very important that you show that it's just not you. Okay, that you are there, you're the backbone. Listen, we put in engagement letters because certain people want it, that I will be performing the majority of the work. I'll be handling the negotiations, etc. It's like people want that, but the bottom line is it's not the end all, because I'm not that wonderful. I'm better, as I said.
You're okay. Come on, now. Don't try to paint a rosy picture here. You're just okay. All right, maybe you're all right.
So how about cold calls? We had a question, and then we'll go to wrap up.
So I used before, I told you that emails are the bridge. Emails are a bridge, or a more effective way, or an instant message, or a LinkedIn message, or some kind of other fast way to reach to someone. I want to make it clear to you, I guarantee you the majority of people on this phone do not listen to all of their voicemails. In fact, I've got something like a 4-digit number on my iPhone of number of voicemails, because it's probably already full or I haven't checked it. Unfortunately, calling today completely cold is hard. But there's a way to do it, and it's asking permission to call, because that's the world that we're in. I don't pick up the phone unless I know what the number is today. I know that when you see how many bad numbers do you get? I've got people calling me from Uzbekistan, China, and other places that I have no idea, and I have to block the calls, okay? The problem is, unless that person's in my directory, I've already established it, then I'm gonna have the conversation. So we have to ask permission to basically say, can we have the call? And that's a great way to send the message. Hey, I love, Lou, what you said on the call today. I want to hear more about what you're talking about, ways I could reach out to my customers. Is it okay if we set up a time that works best for you to speak and chat? Yes, by the way, I would hear that, and that's exactly the way I'd want to be communicated, or I would do it myself. So that's the way that I would look at it. So those that are looking for cold calling, unfortunately, the world we're in right now, it's it's going to voicemail and it's never coming back. So you got to use other means, other communication forces to bridge it to get to the phone call.
Yeah, you know, as talkative as I may be, I actually do have a shy side. So I never liked cold calling for that reason alone. Forgetting about ethically speaking, whether I can do that, you know, with the professional hats that I have. Listen, as a broker, not what I do, but you know, it's part of a young person's entree into the field. You know, the stats are you make 100 cold calls, you know, in a pre-COVID world, you're going to get hung up on 90 times of that 100. You know, might get some choice words thrown at you as well. You know, 3 or 4 maybe a little good bit of glimmer, but nothing's happening. But those 5 calls of 5 of the 100, you know what? There can be something, because part of your role is to get meetings for the people. You just have to know enough to get the meeting for the big cheese, you know, on the brokerage team. So from that perspective, I don't want to sit there and say it's dead. There's limitations based upon what's going on in New York and what you're allowed to do and not do as far as cold calling now. But you know, it's not something that I'm a believer in for what I do. I'd rather put it out there and say, okay, maybe. Listen, I've got in business. Some landlord was looking 8 years ago to you want to know about a good guy guarantee, and he went on to Google, and I was on page 1 because of one of my crazy videos, and I got business from that. You know, that's my cold call, is putting out content.
Yeah.
It's a different way of doing it.
If you wanted to split this, by the way, how many of you are annoyed when you get a LinkedIn unknown message from who that person is and the way it's worded and they're pushing their services right away? That's the whole bringing this whole thing together. That's somebody doing the opposite of the 80-20 and pushing it, and why you cannot connect with that person. And that's why they're not going to make the connection that you need.
Guys, before we get to the Q&A, I reached out to both of you. I love your services. I'm like real hot. I mean, I really like what you said. I want to buy whatever you're selling, Lou. You too, Larry. However, you don't hear from me. When do you reach back to me to say, what's up, Anthony? And how, and again, do you give up after a week, or what do you guys do? How do you answer that one?
You want to go?
I mean, I'm real hot.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more subtle. I listen, the follow-up is so important. Okay. You know, one of my guests on podcast was Ryan Serhant, and he that's one of his main mantras is the follow-up. Okay. Yes. But at the same time, you know, with you know, the seat I sit in, you know, I don't want to be relentless when it comes to that. Yeah. You know, I would say a week time. Hey, hope all is well. Hope you had a good night. Hope you had a good weekend. Okay, just following up. You know, let me know if you want to chat. You know, etc. Until then, be well. Enjoy the day.
Yeah. Anthony,
that's not as subtle and as much as I'll do.
And this gets back to connecting right away. I want to understand that person's priorities and where they are. So if I got something that's hot, I want to ask them, what is a good frequency for us to connect with? Look, I know we just had this meeting. I actually planned the follow-up meeting before I finished the whole sales piece, because you've given a sales presentation and you want to be like, look, I want to do this the right way. What do you need to do on your end to hear this? And when is it too soon for me to be reaching out to you? I ask this question. I ask for permission because I don't want to be that harasser, that person. So it depends on your sales cycle, Anthony. A lot of your time might be that way, but you have to ask what's the best timing and live up to it and put it on your calendar. And then make sure that you follow up with that call whatever time that they said, a little bit before too, if you could. Great.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions for our guests? Thank you so much. This has been so helpful. I learned, I have some takeaways from today. So I'm so glad I was listening. Go ahead and pop those into the chat if you have a question, and we have about 2 more minutes. I like to honor people's time as well. So Pushpa says, thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Looking forward to the next call. I know someone had talked about Salesforce as something they use in your organization, and I'm glad we talked about several different systems because there are many, and it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to have your CRM congruent with your outbound email and client tracking system, then Salesforce can be a good tool, as can Greenrope, Infusionsoft, HubSpot, lots of choices. The good news is you have a lot of choices. Thoughts on newsletters? How often is too often? Quick answer. How often do you do your newsletters, Lou?
I do every 2 months because I have a podcast that's going out every 3 times a week.
Okay.
But before the podcast, I did a once a month thing. I didn't want to be a nuisance every week. I don't like that. That's me.
We do ours we do a newsletter once a month,
Yeah.
and then we have a here's what's going on at Roos every week. That's a weekly, but people have opted in. They want to know, right? Larry, how often do y'all do newsletters?
We were doing them once a week when we were doing the podcast because it would be promoting the podcast. But, oh, yeah, by the way, here's a video on this hot subject. So we put a few other things here in there. Oh, by the way, we're going to be doing a CE presentation. So it would be just like, boom, brief and to the point. But, we were doing them once a week, but it was tied in with promoting one of our events.
Thank you. And someone asked how to get in touch with you all. And Lou, thank you so much. ThriveLoud.com podcast, @ThriveLoud everywhere for Lou. Larry, where can people connect with you?
And either agmblaw.com or leasingreality.com.
Leasingreality.com.
Yeah.
Love
and
that.
The podcast is Real Estate Reality Check.
Okay.
They've had really good guests, by the way, especially a little over a year ago, not even a year ago, I think. It was really good.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Specifically on site at the Real Estate Expo. I don't know if you know about this. They're
Guys, we'll send out both Larry and Lou's contact to everybody, phone numbers and emails. So we'll send that out to everybody.
And you can listen
Guys,
to this recording on the New York City Network Group. If you go to the NewYorkCityNetworkGroup.com page, all of these recordings and the wonderful webinar series that New York City Network Group is hosting are there. Roost Advisors also has a YouTube channel, so you can find these recordings there, so you can go back and listen. Amazing, great content. Anthony, do you want to bring us home?
Yep, Lou, Larry, real honor, very informative. Thank you. Who I run an expo, I learned a lot from you guys, and I really appreciate it. And guys, again, we are hosting a series of 12 chapters, and every week we will have a nice new guest on board, and we're looking forward to next week with Roos Advisories and ourselves to host our next one. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and it was an honor. And thank you guys again. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Larry. And I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. Great talking with everyone.
Thank you for having me. Hope everyone had fun.
Everybody.
Well, take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Lou.